So I'm excited to announce our presenters today from the National Organization for Student Success. Denise Lujan is the president of NOSS, and then Glynis Mullins is the secretary of NOSS. And so I want to thank you both so much for joining us today. I have linked, or you can see the website on the screen here. I'll also drop it in the chat box so that we can all stay connected. And so I'll turn it over to Denise and Glynis.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. And I just want to take a moment and say thank you to Melanie for setting all of this up, and to Complete College America and Brandon Portis for inviting us to come and speak. And my name is Denise Lujan, and I am the director of the Entering Student Experience at the University of Texas at El Paso. And I have been at UTEP for 20 years and been in higher education about 22 years. And I'll let Glynis introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Glynis Mullins. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you spend a little bit of your afternoon with us, so we greatly appreciate it. And again, thank you, Melanie, for all your help and getting us set up. We really appreciate it. They have been so wonderful to host us today. But I am Glynis Mullins. I am at Pitt Community College in Greenville, North Carolina. I am the instructional coordinator for our developmental math department, but our department is developmental education and academic support. And I've been at Pitt probably about 20 plus years now too, so love what I do.
I love what I do as well, and helping students is one of our most, it's a primary driving force for me, is figuring out how to help students. And when Brandon contacted us to give this presentation, he really talked about academic support, but active academic support. So Glynis and I really kind of sat down and we talked about what that really meant to us. Next slide, please. And we thought that the first thing that we really wanted to talk about was the word active, because we can have academic support, but not always is it active. And we wanted to really discuss that just a little bit, and and define it. And active really means movement or action. It's being engaged in an action or activity. It's requiring the expenditure of energy, and it's pursuing the activity at a particular place in a particular way. And what that really means to me is that it is purposeful, it is intentional, and we as instructors and as faculty and as staff working with students, it is with intent that we design programs that help students be successful. Next slide. Oh, you're muted.
Our Zoom world now, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about academic support. I guess I would kind of word that the norm and what that is. But programs and strategies used to increase academic achievement and social emotional skills of students, particularly for students who may be at risk. And so, of course, this is going to include our tutoring, our academic support centers or services. I even think library services, distance learning departments, all those things, right along with tutoring, provide the academic support. Our success courses, of course, we have our ACAs, 111s and 122s and 189s. I don't know if there's a 189, but you get my drift. Learning communities, neighborhoods, all those key things that are important. And then we have advising and counseling services, which I always say is the heartbeat. We gotta make sure that we're advising and counseling our students on a regular basis. Activities and programs designed to engage students with career options. So we have a career services area where we do an assessment. Students do an assessment to kind of identify what career goals they should set or what they're thinking about. Faculty and peer mentoring programs, which I think is always a good thing, because mentoring is just one of those things that we need, and peer mentoring especially when you think about students. And then individualized personal, career, and academic counseling. So that just kind of sums up the programs and the strategies that we're normally associated with probably most of all of our campuses have pretty much all of these services and programs, or are working towards getting more of these. Next slide. And so when you put the active academic support and add the active onto it, then again, like Denise said, it becomes purposeful engagement, the interaction with students to ensure that they are academically and socially successful. And so when we discuss, and one of the things we coming at it, we thought about it and coming at it at a different approach, especially in this day and time when there's so many things around us that are just, not some things are not in a good place, right? So more importantly, active academic support will stem from a culture of care and a place of compassion. And just to reiterate on that, I think that, as we go through this presentation, we will talk so much that intentional word will come up quite a bit, purposeful will come up quite a bit, but just identify what we want to try and do is just identify what that culture of care should look like. And then when we come from a place of compassion, what does that mean? So I will let Denise start with culture of care.
When we started we look at the environment today, and with the online and the pandemic and students really, wanting to have a connection with people, today more than ever, students can find the content on their own. They have the internet. There's so many systems out there that can help them with their work. What they struggle to find is actually someone who will listen and offer feedback. Students can't readily find someone who will care about them as learners. It is that human connection. It is that knowing that someone cares about me, that I matter to them, that what I do and how I'm doing in the class matters to them. Next slide. So culture of care is a theory that says schools and workplaces should put more importance on relationships than curriculum. And I think that's an important area and topic that we all need to address, because it is that human connection. Students are striving for that human connection. And there's a lot of benefits when you start working with students one-on-one and you really start connecting with them one-on-one. There's a lot of benefits that can be had, and it really does help the student become successful. Some of those benefits are that it allows us to see the whole student. Once you build that connection and you build that relationship, you can have a conversation with them. You know that, hey, I have to work from 3 to 11 and it's hard for me to do homework. I have children, I have a grandmother that I'm having to take care of. I've been kicked out of my house. You really get to see what is happening in the student's life. And that allows us to demonstrate that we care about students and their well-being. It's being able to have that connection and know that the student sitting in my class there's a lot more to them than just the student in the class and just about the content. To be able to help them be successful, I really have to get to know the student on a personal level. It helps us understand and address the non-academic needs of students. My previous career was actually in developmental education, and I say previous because I've got a new job at UTEP, right? But I was the director of developmental math, and we had a saying 4 years always. It was that our students are placed into developmental for far more than just the content. And finding out what prevents them from being successful and then helping them find solutions for their barriers is really an important part of them being successful in their developmental course, but also transitioning to college. I think you have, especially with underprepared and students at risk, first generation, low income, it's really important to identify what are their unique barriers, and then helping them solve it. But it also helps us design and provide services focused on helping the students academically, emotionally, and socially. And I think the key here is that we cannot ignore that emotional and social aspect of it. Those play a large part of who we are as people, and we have to appreciate it, respect other different opinions, respect the culture that students come from in order to have that academic success. One of the things that we have done in developmental math is we have always had students that have just almost completed all of the work. I mean, they're right there, but they would fail because they didn't complete 100% of their work. And what we did probably about 8 years ago was we decided that it wasn't fair for them to do that much work but not really get to move forward. So we created what we call an extender program, which is 2 weeks after the semester is over. And those students who have put in a substantial amount of work and who have almost completed the work, they get to go into this 2-week program. And it's after the semester is over, they have to come every day for 3 hours, and they are only focused on finishing their developmental math. And it is one of the most successful programs that we have ever done because it allows those students to complete their work, and the gratefulness and the appreciation that we receive from those students is actually unbelievable. And it's being able, as faculty and staff, it's being able to design programs that help our students in the area, in the space where they are. And that's what a culture of care means to us. Next slide. More importantly, when we build these relationships and we institute or build those connections, it fuels student success because they know I matter. Laura Rendon speaks so well to validation, and students want to know that they are validated, that they are important parts of the community, that they are, that what they think is matters. And I think as faculty and staff, it is our job and our purpose. We all love higher education. That's why we're here. And it is our purpose to help students. But but building those relationships, it impacts the student's sense of belonging. And I think when a student feels like they belong and they are appreciated and valued, they have a much higher chance of being successful in our classes. It builds trust with students. It knows that they're in a safe space, that you're there to help them. I think with our faculty, I think we have to make sure that we understand that trust is critical, that we have to have a two-way street, that the students must know that they are in a safe space and they can, bring up issues that they're having. But that also means our part of the trust is that we have to demonstrate empathy so that when we know that there's a student who is got some medical crisis and they are missing a test, we have to understand that we can be flexible and help that student. And I always think of putting myself in the student's shoes, and I have had, multiple things that have happened. We have kids in sports that get broken ankles and you have to go take them to the doctor, that kind of thing. We know that as faculty, we have the ability to go handle that crisis and come back to work. We want to make sure that as in a culture of care that we allow students and let students do that as well. Next slide.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about compassion, of course. And so one of the things that we discussed was that pedagogical approach that includes or involves recognizing students are unique human beings, and making sure that that classroom environment comes from a perspective other than one's own. So meaning that when we are thinking in terms of this, that's the community, That's to me the community college motto, or saying. We even have our saying, meet all of our students where they are and ... But we have to be able to appreciate where they are, recognize where they are, where they're coming from. We have to appreciate what they're going through. We've got to keep that in mind, that they are going to go through things. And I also believe that we have to respect that they have their own unique journey. Their journey is not our journey. And even though we are faculty, or we are in the registrar's office, or we're in TAS or tutoring or administration, we still have to have some compassion. So we still have to understand that students are going to have their own unique journey, and what can we do to help them get through that journey. We also know that compassion provides the opportunity to connect with our students in a meaningful and transformative way. Personal connection, I think, Denise said that and stressed on that. That personal connection is vital, so important. I even was in a conference attending something, and it was like a must-have. You got to have it, Be intentional about building some great relationships with your students. And even when you are in leadership, still building those good relationships with the people that you work with. It'll only trickle down to the people that we're serving. If everybody is having great relationships, it is going to trickle down to everyone, right? And then finally, just foster opportunities to connect with our students. Put things in place where we are connecting with our students. And then compassion leads to a richer and more effective course delivery. Maybe not even course delivery, but just in general, whatever area you're working in your campus, compassion will lead to a richer and more effective way of doing whatever it is that you do. And then compassion means looking towards students with kindness, generosity, flexibility, and care. I can't stress that enough. I think it's just nice to be kind to one another. Be generous, be flexible. It just provides an avenue for students to see that you do care, but if you have compassion in that format, it just allows them to push harder. I can't say how many times just the fact that I was a little flexible with a deadline meant that they appreciated that I was that flexible, and then went to work. And I'm like, it's always like so weird to me how that happens, right? I show that I care, and I show that I'm going to be a little flexible, and then they buy into it and they go to work. And so one of the things that I wanted to read was, if we do not put relationships first, we fail to ensure that students meet their potential. And that is so vital in this whole concept of culture of care and compassion. Next slide. So I'm going to start off with just maybe some examples, and we just kind of highlighted some things on how do we act with care. Making a conscious choice to care. I think the key word there is choice. Internal, that's an internal thing. Being intentional, we keep saying that. That's probably going to be like the highlight word of the day, I guess. But I think too, just on a personal note, explore what motivates you to care. Sometimes we just have to tap into what are the things that we care about, and how do we do those things? How do we build relationships around those things that we care about, and just try to mimic some of that in our own everyday lives with our students. And again, I don't think it matters what part of the campus you work on. I think it's just having a conscious choice to care about the students that we serve. Being wide awake, I had that in my head, just being aware of, all the things that are surrounding our students. Making policies, if you're in leadership or administration, making sure that policies demonstrate that we have chosen to care about who these policies are going to affect and impact. Faculty, staff, anybody, administration, just those things are important. And then believing in our students and demonstrating that belief. Words of power. I say it all the time, that I just believe how we say things is sometimes not what you say, is how you say it. I know even when I'm with my students, you know, encouraging words, I'm always you rock. I'm always using emojis with thumbs up or, you know, a high five. I'm always allowing them to use their own emojis to show rejoicing or whatever the case might be. But I think when you say you got this, and even if it's something that you are relaying to a student or someone, a faculty or a peer, um, just being able to say that, you know, I know whatever I'm getting ready to say is maybe a little challenging, maybe not hard to hear. I just went through a session a couple of days ago where we we're talking about duct tape and bubble wrap. And it's how do you say things in an environment where it might be a little harsh and you need them to be accountable, but you can put words around that so it just doesn't seem like you're demeaning them or calling them out in a negative context. And then encouraging students to pursue their goals and dreams and supporting them along their journey. I guess for that one, it's just the biggest thing is you got to allow opportunities for them to share their goals and their dreams. You don't know what they're aspiring to be, then you can't help them. So again, those relationships and those connections that you make with your students. My students, I teach math, but they do a lot of journaling, especially in my online environment. And so they are journaling, and one of their questions or one of the things they have to journal about is about pursuing goals and dreams. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? ... And elaborate on that and let me know. So then what I do is I get all that information. And guess what? Down the road, when we're doing something else, I bring that up. Or if I see something on the TV or if I read something, I suggest it or I share it with my students because I know what they've said are their goals and their dreams. So I think that's always a big thing. And then validating students as valuable members of our classroom and community. I'm probably like the biggest, I don't know what you want to call it. I tell my students, you're Mrs. Mullins family. And so everybody is cousin, whoever, and we're in here together and we're just one big family. So whatever your name is, put Mullins behind it, you know, and a lot of times they'll do it, you know. We'll have an activity where they got to put Mullins behind it, and that just makes them have that sense of belonging. I also like to talk about introductions, and when I do introductions, I take the information from the introductions, and I've done like a PowerPoint quiz, and they have to go and see who is what, but they find things in common. I tell them all the time, you'd be surprised how much in common you have with your classmate. But I think it also, in leadership, has to also show that valuable members and they participate in activities. We had our VP, a president, do the pie throwing contest. We've had a Dunkin' booth, and the VP's in the Dunkin' booth, and the students are like just crazy because they're like, oh my God, he's participating in something. He's gonna let us put him in the water. That is so cool. So if you can, even from leadership to registrar to wherever, building that community is just so vital, because if they have that sense of belonging, then, you know, they're going to feel valued and they're going to stay and they're going to do what they have to do. So that is probably one of my areas of just being very passionate. I want them to belong. I want them to feel like they belong. All right. And next slide, Denise.
Right. And so that gets us to engaging with students in a purposeful and proactive way. And again, we have been saying purposeful and with intent the whole time. And it's setting up things and activities for us to do with students that initiates in that sense of engagement and belonging. For example, a few years ago, I changed how I structured my class completely at the beginning. I started where I would, the first 5 to 10 minutes, and I know how much content it takes us to get through it, but it was such a transformational thing for me. This, you know, the first 5 to 10 minutes of every class, I would walk in with a question. And sometimes it could be, what's your major? What are you good at? What is one thing you learned about the institution? You know, about midterm grades, you would say, what about how are you doing in classes? That kind of thing. And it immediately, not only for the students, but it immediately, that first week, I knew every student's name, because now I knew something very purposeful and about all of them. I knew something personal about all of them. And it was so funny. We kept doing that it was about midterm, and I walked in and I said, I have my question already. And there was this student, she's just like, Ms. Lujan, Ms. Lujan, Ms. Lujan. And I'm like, what? She's like, can we just talk about how stressful it is and how I'm so worried about all my tests? I'm just overwhelmed. And I'm like, of course we can, right? And then I proceeded that day, because it came to find out all of them were feeling that way. I spent more than half of the class speaking one-on-one with each of the students, right? And just getting to know what was going on, what did they need help with, and other students would jump in and say, well, did you know you could go here, or did you do this? And it became a whole group, session where we all tried to figure out how to get through midterms. It was really transformational for me as an instructor and for my students in that classroom. And I think one of the things that we have to do while we're doing this, we have to share our passion and excitement about learning with students. We're in this together. We're in higher ed because we love working with students and we want to see them be successful. And we are always trying to find what's that one way that I can get this one student to learn this concept or to keep coming to class. And it's reaching out with texting them and calling them. And I am one of those professors that if a student's not there in class, I'm texting them. I'm like, first thing, I'm like, where are you? Right. And they get to where they text me before class to let me know, hey, I'm doing this or I'm running late, because they know that I'm going to text them right there at the start of class going, where are you? Right. I think that we have to realize that students have different needs and they need different kinds of help. I have one student once who was having a serious issue with a professor in another class, and she came to me for advice. And so I really just advised her of what the process was and just was the support for her as she was going through the process of trying to handle all of that. And it had nothing to do with my class, but it had everything to do with her staying in school. I think our responsibility as instructors is larger than the class that we're teaching or in the department that we're running. We have to look at the overall picture and how do we keep that student in class. And I think that we also have to be just approachable and vulnerable and human. And we make mistakes and we got to laugh at ourselves, and we've got to let students know something about us as well, right? And share a little bit about ourselves, right? So I think that it's really, really important to be human and to make that human connection. And if I could leave you with anything, it really is being, purposeful, create activities and engagement opportunities with intent, be real, and be there for the students. We are there to help them be successful. And again, not just in our class, but at the institution and in life so that they can complete their degree. And next slide. And with that, you'll see that we have our emails there if you would like to reach out to us. And now we'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Denise and Glynis. That was great. So we do have a few questions. Let me go to the Q&A first. Sorry. And I'll stop sharing the screen. How do you move from building relationships individually and caring for students to do this at the institution level where it's kind of consistent across the entire campus?
I think and I'm sorry, Glynis, I'm going to jump in. I think there's two main approaches that we have to do. Is one, we have to get faculty and staff to buy in to treat, seeing the whole student. Right there, I'm right now in the middle of combining 3 different departments. In my previous department, we have, it is instilled, it is a culture, it's a philosophy, right? The other department, that hasn't really been a philosophy. So it is professional development, it's having conversations, it's cross-training, it's giving examples of how we can help students. And I think we have to give faculty time to own that, right? And take it as a part of their thing, their everyday life. But as a leader, I believe that it's really important to create policies and procedures that are designed for that. For example, every one of our classes has a information form at the very beginning of the semester that gives very critical pieces of information about students: a real phone number, a real email, do they work, how many hours. You know, I can look at an information form and know automatically week 1, day 1, who's in trouble already, just by looking at their schedule. And I think if you design policies and procedures that can kind of force that culture of care, then I think that helps us. Glynis, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I was just going to say, I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. I think it is a part of professional development or resources, providing avenues to resources to enhance. I think part of what I said before is that, you know, if you motivate yourself by the things that you care about outside of your job or working at the school or with the students, and try to tap into that, I think that's where a lot of that internal desire to want to care, to be kind. But I think it does stem from allowing professional development. I know we have in the fall, we always have this big get together in our department where we come together and we share. And it's a whole day of activities, things for us to do. But it helps because it gives us a chance to interact with each other, which then hopefully will give them whatever it is that they need to also, when they go to the classroom, to promote some of those things as well. So we try to provide a lot of resources, and I think that's vital. And I think, like Denise said, give us time to figure out what that looks like. But sometimes we don't have a lot of time because, we're trying to serve and get these students through.
Another question came in. How do you ensure that there's communication about care efforts in your institution among faculty, staff, and administrators?
Well, I think that partly it has to come from, I think, everyone on campus, right? Even in leadership, it has to start at the provost down to say that, hey, student success comes first. Above all else, that's what we're here to help. And I think that comes in the tone of messages that you see, the support that you give faculty and staff. If you want faculty and staff to show a culture of care with the students in their classroom, you have to help them do that. So as leaders, we have to be flexible as well, to know that, hey, sometimes I need to switch a student from this class to the other class because they can't attend my class anymore. But now, if I put them in, on a Tuesday, Thursday class instead of Monday, Wednesday, I'm helping that student. You're foregoing the policy because you're not changing, you're not adding and dropping classes, you're just letting a student attend another class, letting faculty find those ways and staff find those ways where they can help students, and you as a leader support that. That goes a long way to them being creative and productive and really trying to think outside the box and helping students.
I agree with that. I think, and I think sometimes it is a matter of starting in small situations too. I don't know if you can really go out in the middle of campus and say, let's do this. But I think if you can start in small areas, and, we're going through Achieving the Dream now, and we're in that process, and you learn a lot about yourselves as an institution, and you learn where the communication breaks down. And so, we've even, as a student success part of the team, is trying to come up with ways to market what does student success look like, and market what it looks like, and then say, if we want students to be successful, these are the things that have to be in place. You can't answer a student. There should be no way, no shape, form, I don't care where it's coming from. You should never answer a student and say, oh, I can't help you. that's just not acceptable, right? So if you're just not sure that what you should say, then there should be a script on the side of your wall that says, okay, well, the student asked this, let me look and see how I should respond. And between 8 and 5, I've got to make sure that I'm intentional about communicating things correctly. I think sometimes it just starts small, and it's a marketing thing, just market, promote, let people see students are being successful when they get this information in the right format. And then I think it just grows from there. But culture is culture, and you have to build it.
I wanted to ask, I know that there is sometimes stigma associated with accessing academic support on campus. How can leaders, advisors, institutions as a whole eliminate the stigma of students accessing those resources?
Well, I'll go first. For that one, I just think it's just I think some of what we said in our presentation is that if you're able to show that you care and you build that trust, and promote the academic support systems in a way that it doesn't look like a stigma. And I'm gonna just real quickly hop on, give my husband his kudos, but he's the head men's basketball coach at Pitt. And go Bulldogs, if there are any Bulldogs in the house. But he's been coaching 10 years. And when he got the program, it was like an average GPA was like 1.2 something or another. And I remember him saying, I got to figure out how to get this right. I need to build a culture of success. I need to get students in here, athletes in here that want to be students. I've got to figure out how to reach out to all the support systems that I need to have surrounding my players. And I need to be the person that reaches out and says, okay, my players need this. How do I get this in place? My husband has a beautiful relationship with TAS, like study hall, and they come together, they meet, talk about, my husband saying, this is what I need from my players. And I think that question is especially important because there is so much stigma. I hear students say all the time, well, I didn't go because I didn't want anybody to think I was stupid. Then I'm like, well, no. And so it's how you phrase that. When a student says that, what do you say? How do you phrase that to them and say, no, but if you have that relationship and that connection, and I say, you all need to go to TAS, they're going. They don't look at it that way because they're hearing it from me, who they trust and who they have a relationship with. So I just always like to mimic him a lot.
Yeah, I think we also, as faculty and as departments, we have to collaborate around campus. So yes. For example, when we're working with students, in developmental math in particular, the academic advisors are a partner. I'm telling you, I don't implement a program without their input, right? I do not do that. And if any program that we offer, we get their advice and we let them know what is going on. So we're all telling the same story, right? We're all having the same description of it all. When we have students that are in trouble, we partner with them. We partner with the counseling services. We have them come to the class, and we know people. So what I'm saying, when you do that collaboration is say, okay, you need to go talk to Jennifer over in advising because she is going to help you out with this, or you need to go talk to Ricardo over in the counseling office because he is awesome and he's going to help you solve this. And it puts that, again, that personal nature, that person, that connection around there, right? And I think as faculty and staff, again, as faculty in a classroom, I have to pay attention to the entire institution. So I need to know, I need to have that contact in advising. I need to have that contact with, financial aid to say, hey, I have a student I'm about to drop. Can you talk to him about his, what's going to happen to him, right? That is kind of another way I think we can do that.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think we have time for one last question. What would you recommend, or what's your advice for colleges and universities as they prepare for students who might have been sent home from their schools during COVID and how their virtual learning shift happened? What are things that universities and colleges can be doing now to prepare for those students in the future?
One of the things I'm thinking of doing, because I am, and again, we're about to go back to campus in the fall, and in June our offices have to be open. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little anxious of it, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I have to get up and like really get dressed, and I have to drive, and I have to. It's like it's a whole culture shock,
Yep.
right? The students are doing the same thing. Right. So I think we help them ease into the transition. So I think this fall we'll start early communicating with students. We'll still have some online aspects so that they can, you know, still be in a world that they're comfortable with and transition to being in that face-to-face. It's really easy to communicate in a discussion board and say your thoughts when you're online. It's different when you're in a classroom. So, and you're face to face, right? And I think we have to help them with that transition, and we do that in small chunks. We keep some of the previous ways we were working embedded into the classroom, and kind of do, that's what I'm thinking there. Glynis, what do you think?
No, I agree. I think it's vital that you know, it's transition. I mean, anytime you're transitioning from one thing to the other, it is going to take some concerted effort. It's going to take some intentionality. You're going to have to be mindful of the fact that they are going to have to transition. And for us too, I mean, I agree with Denise. It's like I text one of my best friends. She was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got a presentation, so I got to dress my upper part of my body, you know." I mean, you know, I am fully dressed though, really, to be honest. But it's just now in this new realm of things, I'm just making sure my hair is done, lipstick's on, and earrings, and a nice top, and I'm good. I might have leggings on, but you would never know. So I think it's just really taking into consideration our own adjustments that, you know, we're having to make, and then making sure that we're marketing. Again, I just think, you know, we have to be intentional about letting students know what they're about to face. I have a problem when we don't put things out there and be a little transparent about the challenges that they're going to face doing this or that. And I think that's always a hard thing for institutions sometimes to do, because they think you have to do it in a massive format. But, you know, I think it's just intentionally being prepared for this transition. So hope that answered the question.
Denise and Glynis, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like this is right on time with how we're still coping with COVID, all of the recent racial injustices. So thank you so much for joining us. Please stay connected with Complete College America. My email address is also on the screen if anyone has questions, and we invite you to join us for our next webinar on career exploration in 2 weeks on May 6th at 3 p.m. You will receive a link to the recording and a very quick 5-minute evaluation for today's webinar. We really would appreciate if you took the time to complete that. But again, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Denise and Glynis, for joining us. And
thank you, Melanie, for having us. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you so much for having us. And I appreciate everybody that attended and watched. It was really fun for us. Right. So,
yep. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.